Hey everyone, welcome back to the AutoMind podcast where we sit down with leaders who are reshaping logistics in the supply chain. Today I'm joined by Arthur Sharapov, president and founder of Cargo Hive Supply Chain Solutions. After building his career in logistics from pricing specialist at Proactive Supply Chain Group to logistics experts at RTL, Arthur launched Cargo Hive earlier this year with the mission of delivering seamless and reliable supply chain solutions across North America. Arthur, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dustin.
Oh,
I'm
no
excited
problem
to
at
be here.
all. So we'll get into his journey, what he's seeing in the industry, and how Cargo Hive is helping simplify complexities for businesses. So let's get to know a little about you. Can you walk us through your background, I guess starting all the way from back in proactive supply chain to RTL to now launching Cargo Hive?
Yeah, sure. I can start even earlier. I think the way I got into logistics was actually a complete accident. I'm a business major. The first job I found was completely by accident. It was a dispatcher job at a company called Highlight. They asked me if I know what a dry van is. I said no. They said, "How fast do you answer the phone?" I said, "As soon as it rings." And then they kind of gave me a chance. I got
Good
lucky,
answer.
and yeah, it was a very interesting experience. It was a baptism by fire. I think the volume I handled on a daily basis was 1,000 emails, and it was one of those movie situations. Like you hear the stockbrokers, they have one phone call, they put them on hold, then you get a second one and a third one. I think in America, TQL would be something similar to that. So I didn't last there very long because I felt overwhelmed. I was there, I think, for about a year. And then after that, I kind of went to a different route, but I realized that's what I love to do. I love being busy. I love always working on shipments. I love, like being on the phone. I love keeping busy during the day, and it interests me. Like every single day in logistics, there's always an issue that you haven't seen before, and you gotta figure it out. And that's what drove me to do it at Proactive. Before that, I was always on the carrier side, right? So I was dealing with drivers directly. I was the planner. I was helping out with the customs. I was, the sales guy. I was a dispatcher. I was everything all into one. And when I went to Proactive, I discovered that there's a whole new world out there. It's not just dry van and reefers. There's step decks. There's flatbeds. There's overdimensional loads. There's container drayage. There's warehousing. There's, like different forms of LTL.
Hmm.
And that opened my eyes. And at RTL, I was able to kind of, do that a little bit on my own without like not a lot of support. I had to figure out a lot of issues on myself, and I loved it. Like I loved, kind of. Maybe this is not the best way to say it, but I love putting, my foot in my mouth and then just figuring it out. And
Yeah.
as long as you work hard and you keep like a good attitude and you kind of understand that both sides have to be happy. You have to explain everything to the customer and you have to explain everything to the carrier. As long as you have like an honest dialogue with everyone, everything seems to work out.
Oh, yeah. I think that's the best way to learn sometimes too.
Yeah, you learn by mistakes. It's not the best way to learn.
Yeah.
I wish I learned from other people, but yeah. So far so good.
All right. Yeah. What does your day to day look like as the president and founder?
So day to day, it's very interesting because before I think I made a LinkedIn post on that. I thought I've seen it all. I have 7 years of experience. I worked at every single level. I work from like the data entry person all the way up to like a director level person. I thought like there was nothing else I had to learn, and then bam, insurance, bam, set up the TMS. Like I have to set up with a factoring company. I have to get a separate type of insurance. And there's other stuff that I never thought I would have to figure out new stuff, but that's what it is right now. Every single day there's a new problem. Since we're a newer company, there's also a component where I do have to make sales calls with my partner. And, like, now within the first kind of month, we already have 25 shipments. So there is a large component of dispatching the shipments by ourselves, like working with the carriers, working with the customers. We also pride ourselves on not just the service, right? But the reason why we chose the name Cargo Hive, because I always have this vision of being like a busy bee, right? So we always try to work quick, and that's what we're doing, right? Like we kind of working right now 24/7 just because we're a younger company. So during the day, it's a little bit more sales, customer focused, carrier focused. And then after the day, kind of dies down after 5 or 6 p.m., that's when we're looking to promote. So that's when we're looking to, kind of make a couple LinkedIn posts for the next day, that's when we're looking at how do we set up, like a new TMS. How do we learn the TMS, right? That's when all the other stuff kind of comes into play. So it's busy days, but it's worth it. This is what we signed up for. We're excited to, get this going.
Oh yeah, it'll pay off in the long run. So I noticed you said you and your partner. Is it only you two at the moment, or is there a small team? Or
At the moment, it's just us two. We're
okay,
already looking at maybe bringing in a couple more people, but we want to make sure that when we bring someone on, that we kind of know exactly what they're gonna go through, right? So I've trained people before, he's trained people before, but right now we want to make sure, since this is our company, right? Like we want to make sure everything is perfect before we can hand it off to another person, right? Because I think it's unfair to bring people on and then you kind of throw them into the fire, even if they are experienced, right? Like there's still a settling in period, right? And I don't want to, I've been in those positions before, and as I mentioned, like I train people, I want to ease people in. And until we have everything running, to a certain level, and until we have a certain level of customers, I think it's best that me and Talal, my co-founder, handle it by ourselves right now.
no, I can appreciate that. I think whenever you do take the step of hiring people, I think they would appreciate that also. It sounds like you actually care about your employees, which is kind of hard to find these days from employers.
Yeah, we are Canadians, so we try to be very courteous to every single person, right? Like I think positive reinforcement works best, and when you're in a high pressure environment, right, I don't want to send them on a mission where they might not come out fully there, right? Right now, it's very very busy. I know me and my co-founder are okay with 24/7 days, but it's unfair to ask that of someone who is there for a job, right? Because I think a big part of logistics, like you can't work 24/7 unless you're getting compensated the same way.
Yeah, I love that mindset though, because a lot of people think like they want to get into any type of business or start their own startup, things like. I don't think they realize that in the beginning, who knows how many years it's going to be a grind. It's not like it's overnight success. They see all these people that have $1 million companies, $1 billion, but they don't see like how long it took them to get to that point.
Yeah.
I know you guys are going to be grinding it out for a while, but it will pay off in the long run for sure. Having something of your own is so it's going to be special to have something to call your own. You don't work for anyone else. You built something for yourself. So I love anybody who's an entrepreneur. That mindset is it's not easy, but it pays off.
Yeah, and we're really proud of it too. Like we're very like I think like if you were to speak to our customers, they would say that they're very happy with our service. I don't think there's an email that goes unanswered within 10 minutes, right? We're very very service focused right now. I think that's the key to survive right now. Like everyone is trying to get the lowest rate possible, but I think it can't come at the cost of service, right? There still has to be a component of service, especially when you're working on big projects, right? Just because you go with the lowest bidder, but you have like 35 shipments and then something goes wrong, right? Then you still need to go find someone else. I think a big reason why, we already have this many shipments is our experience, right? We can kind of see problems before they happen and we kind of explain that to the customer beforehand that, hey, you're going to run into these issues. So I think the customers that we deal with appreciate that, we do have the experience of getting our hands dirty and they're the ones that are working with us for any kind of issue that comes up.
No, perfectly said. I think communication is big, especially in this area. Logistics for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about industry trends. So, like, what kind of major shifts are you seeing in North American logistics right now?
Industry trends, I think the tariffs, I think there's a lot of smart people, like I was talking to some big customers before the tariffs kind of even went down and they pre-ordered a lot of stuff, which I think was very, very smart on their part. And I think that's the advice that anyone in logistics should have kind of given, right? Because these tariffs, they were being talked about for a long time. And, with I forget what it's called, but I think it's called like de minimis kind of packages where packages under $750, they were not also customs cleared.
Yeah, it just changed, I believe, right? Recently. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's also a big kind of trend that we're seeing. We've seen a lot smaller packages, right? So it's not traditional LTL, so we're doing a lot more courier service too. I think before that, commercially, we only offered LTL, but now we're seeing a lot more packages moving around. I think with Canada Post, I don't know if you know this, but Canada Post kind of tries to go on strike every year too, right? So it's a fun time in Canada. In the last 2 years, I think our rails went on strikes. I think your guys' ports went on strike. Canada
Yeah,
Post
that
already
was a
went
big
on
one,
strike.
all over the news. Yeah.
Yeah, Air Canada went on strike very briefly, right? So right now there's so much kind of stuff floating around. So not every week is the same for us. The trends that we're seeing is that people are front loading their product and then they're kind of, relaxing a little bit. So we're seeing a lot of kind of rush, then pause, seeing what the news brings, and then they kind of, let it settle, and then they kind of bring stuff back. But I think right now everything is kind of slow. I think everyone's kind of feeling the pain. But in a month, 2 months time, once everything gets figured out, once there's a new trade deal, I think things will fly off the shelf again.
Yeah, I agree. It probably will calm down in a few months. Right now, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of like a play by ear thing.
Yeah,
Well, kind
it
of
makes our
piggyback.
job interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of to piggyback off that, what service areas like LTL, reefer, bonded freight, oversized loads, warehousing, what do you think like is evolving the fastest?
I think courier service. I think a lot of people, especially with Canada Post, they're reporting huge losses. I think a lot of people in Europe they said they're not going to ship to U.S. anymore. So I think whoever can figure out a way to consolidate it and kind of ship it out quicker, that's who's going to win the game. And that's potentially the next company that's going to come around. So we've taken a look at courier service, but for us, that's not the only thing we want to offer, right? Because our expertise, I think it would just I don't want to say it will be wasted just on courier service because I think courier service is also very important. But what we try to do, the way we kind of explain to the customer what we do, it's not just one thing that we do, right? We cover all of Canada and soon to be USA with all types of transportation methods, and we can also get involved in the warehousing. We provide a lot of warehousing solutions and the container drayage. So that's our selling point. We're not just there for you with one type of shipping methods. We're there for your whole supply chain. So if there's an issue, for example, with the ILA strike, we'll find a way to do it for you, right? Like whether it's bringing into Montreal or holding on to your freight for as long as you can before you need to ship it out, we'll find a solution for you.
No, see, I like that you guys think about all aspects. I'm sure that matters to customers, you know? It's not
Yeah.
someone that just does one part of the thing or can't help them or kind of like, says it's not my job or that type of thing. So I'm sure everybody can appreciate that.
Yeah, when I was on the carrier side, that's actually one of the things I frequently speak about. I want to say like I was great on the carrier side, but when a customer reached out to me with their shipments for the week, I only cared about two or three, to be honest with you, right? And I hate to say it, but like when you have 60 drivers on the road, you don't have time to deal with every single, shipment that the customer has. And I feel that kind of cheapens the relationship a little bit, right? Because I want to be there for the customer. I want to be there, for everyone, right? Like I want to make sure that we do our job right. I don't want to just take one little shipment and just say, "Hey, bye, see you next week," right? Like I want to make sure that there are some shipments that are harder to cover than others, and I want to work with the customer on every single shipment rather than just one that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I'm sure as every any business scales, it is harder to, I guess, cater or attend to the customer as
Hmm.
much.
Yeah,
But I mean, as long as you try to keep that in mind, which it seems like you have the right mindset when it comes down to, customer relationship, that's a big thing.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about Cargo Hive. Like, what do you guys see what's working really well for you guys right now?
What's working for us, I think, is our expertise in Canada. I think there's very few people that can offer everything. Like I mentioned on the carrier side, right? There's a lot of people that are only interested in the LTL. There's a lot of people that are only interested in the courier service and the warehousing. There's a lot of people that are only interested in the overdimensional. And I think for us, we can do everything within Canada. And because we can do everything within Canada, we're also work faster because it's only two of us, right? There's other companies that can do what we do. I'm not saying we're the only ones. But I think when you're working at a bigger company, it's more compartmentalized, right? So by the time you send an email to a sales guy, hey, I want to get your opinion on this quote, right? He copies in his team. His team kind of has like a certain amount of quotes that they're already working on, right? So before the quoting team actually gets to your quote, if you're a customer, it's already 1.5 hours in. But within 30 minutes, me and my partner, we already quoted shipment. We already can tell you when we can pick up. What's working for us is just that, like I think we're working very, very fast. so far the customers that we have, they gave us a good amount of shipments, and we're excited to keep going this way. Like I really want to get to the point where we open up the USA side as well, because I had a lot of experience in USA. I actually lived in Miami for 3 years, so I really want to open up an office to go back, and work on my suntan during the winter, and kind of split my time between those places. And I also love America. I love American sports. I love a lot of the cultural aspects too. So that's the vision. We want to be there in Canada. We want to be in USA and Mexico as well. So, we're working hard to get to every single country in North America. Yeah.
The same question. What's the biggest challenge do you think since launching?
The challenge is that no one knows who we are. Like we have a
Everybody does
LinkedIn
struggles
page.
with that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a LinkedIn page and we have a website. Like how much can you really convey with that, right? Like I think it's very, very important that whenever we do call new customers, they're like, who, where, what's your name? It's very hard to sometimes explain that, like, hey, like, like I am good at what I do. And I think like I think everyone now, every single manufacturer, every single freight forwarder, they get bombarded with phone calls. So the challenge is, how do we stand out? How do we explain we're not just your regular 3PL who can just do over the road stuff. We handle all types of shipments. We can help with all types of problems that you have. So the challenge is definitely being seen and being heard and being taken seriously. But I think once the customer kind of sees how fast we do things, after a couple of days of talking to us, that kind of flips quickly. So in every challenge, I look for the bright side, and I'm not scared of it. As I mentioned, I've done this twice before, and this is the fastest that I've been able to build already, like a pipeline.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate. A lot of startups go through that where, they're like, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of the grind, right? Well, I think just from speaking to you, I kind of noticed that you seem really genuine, which is the way you come across is a big deal for a lot of people you work with. When you're honest and genuine, they kind of can feel that, and they're more willing and open to people like that to work with you. And it just, you can kind of get a vibe from someone to kind of know whether you would want to work with them or not. So
For
that's
sure.
another big thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of business is personal relationships, right? Like one of the things that I like to do whenever like we kind of send out a quotes, I don't want to just leave it there. I want to make sure, especially if it's a project, right? Like I want to speak about the project. I want to understand what's going on. I think during the ILA strike, that's when um, a lot of the customer service kind of came across, because there was a lot of companies from the USA reaching out to us. How do we do this? How do we do that? And I was first trying to understand what they were trying to do, right? A lot of people were getting quotes sent to them, like, send me a quote for this shipment, send me a quote for that shipment. But no one really called, no one really picked up the phone, called, try to understand what it is that the customer is trying to do. Because a lot of the customers, they were just asking for straight up, I want a drayage from, let's say, Port of Montreal to Georgia. And to me, like, I understand mileage, right? Like, if you're doing a drayage all the way across the border, like, you got to pay for the empty miles back. So I want to know, are you going to import that, and are you going to keep it there in Georgia? And if you are, then it might make sense to transload, right? And a lot of the customers said it does make sense, right? And just by one phone call, we were able to save like 30-40% of whatever else that they got quoted from other people, right? So I think it's very, very important to understand what it is that the customer is trying to do before you quote it.
Well, yeah, that's another big thing. What you just mentioned, how you solved it might have been such a simple thing you did, but the result was big. I think as time goes on and as you guys do things like that, you guys have proven your track record. You guys can use things like that to when people say, "Hey, what have you done?" or what can you offer us and things like that. So that's really big. So what metrics do you guys focus on the most? Is it efficiency, cost per mile, on-time delivery, customer satisfaction? I know that's a big one you just mentioned, but
Yeah, so right now, since we're like very, very young, we're mostly tracking like metrics for quoting, right? Like, well, I want to see what it is that we quoted, how we quoted it, did we go too high, did we go too low, what are we winning, what kind of shipments are we winning? So that's the metrics we're focusing on. In terms of the shipments, like it's impossible to come on time on every single shipment. The metric that we're checking, are we at least at the 90% mark? And I think it's also important, like even if you are going to come in late, you need to notify in advance. I don't think enough people do this in this industry. right? Because like in some places they hire lumpers, right? And if you don't tell them the day before, if the lumper shows up at 9 a.m. and at 10 a.m. you telling the customer, hey, like I'm coming in at 11, that's how you lose. That's how you lose a relationship, right?
Yeah.
So the metric that we pride ourselves on is like once we finish like a couple shipments with the customer, are they sending us more quote requests? Are they sending us more shipments? And are we getting more of their volume? Are we opening up a new area? So I think right now, like even though our database is a little bit small, I think in like 2 or 3 months time we can get some real data, and then we can kind of make judgments, and we can see like, oh, are we focusing too much on these shipments that we're only winning maybe like 5% of, or are we not focusing enough on the shipments that we're actually winning 50% of? Should we like should our sales go after those types of customers? So I think right now the metrics that we kind of like see if we've done right is just kind of seeing if the customer will stay with us. But in 3 months' time, we can get some real data, and then we can kind of get a little bit more involved in seeing where we're doing, where we're going right, where we're going wrong.
For sure, yeah. Once you guys get all that data over time, you guys will be able to make much better, I guess, choices and decisions on what needs to be where and how it needs to be done. So I know you did say, as far as Mexico, the U.S., as far as expanding into those markets, but where, I guess that's going to take a little bit of time. But as far as maybe just the next 6 to 12 months, like where do you see you guys in the next 6 to 12 months, or like what is your, I guess, immediate things you want to get done in that short of a time frame? Like,
So the 6 to 12 months, we really want to like start USA. I think a big part of our experience is also doing cross border. So like we don't want to leave Canada just with Canada, and I've had like a good amount of experience in USA too. So I have a good amount of contacts there. What we really want to achieve within 6 months, we really want to focus on just the Canadian presence, not just within Canada, but cross border. So we want to be experts. Anything that comes into Canada, anything that comes out of Canada, we want to be able to explain to the customer what we can do, how we can do it, what's a better way for them to do it. And that includes Mexico too, right? So even if it's coming from Mexico to Canada or Canada to Mexico, I have great experience in that. And I really want to work on that. And then within the 6 to 12 months, that's for the first 6 months. And within the first 6 months, I also want to get another person that can help us, that thinks the same as us, that can maybe, improve us and, make us a little bit faster. Because I think within 6 months, we're going to be maybe not overwhelmed with shipments, but we want to be able to make sure that we can handle the amount that we're getting without losing our service, right? So within the 6 months, I want to make sure that everything goes smooth. And the 6 to 12 months, I want to expand. I want to become, more pronounced in the USA too. I think the USA is a great market. I've mentioned before, like I lived in Miami for 3 years. I love the USA. I have a lot of friends there. I love traveling through the southern states, and I wanna have a reason to travel the USA, right? Like I've been all over Canada. I want to have a reason to go to the Northeast. I want to have a reason to go to Texas. I want to have a reason to go to California. And I think once we start opening up these relationships, the 6 to 12 month period, we can open up an office somewhere in the States so we can focus more on growing the US side of the business too.
no, that sounds like some solid goals, and it's totally doable. I think this question's gonna be a big one, but probably a little hard. Some people to kind of narrow it down. If you could solve one major challenge today in the supply chain, what would it be?
One major challenge.
Maybe something you guys notice you are dealing with personally, or maybe it could be an industry-wide challenge you just have been noticing, or
There's so many. And I think like, like if you asked me like 3 months ago, I would have had a different answer for you. Right now, because of the tariffs, that's the challenge, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
every single day, there's a new issue, right? And there's days when, like for example, like a customer asks us to quote something to the USA one day, and the next day they can't do it because the 50% tariff kicked in, right? So the challenge is turbulence right now, right? Like what can you do? Like how can you do it? And I think the challenge is to kind of get to normalcy, right? So it's kind of easier to understand what you can offer the customer, what you can offer the customer. Can we do this today? Can we do this next week? Right? Like, I don't think anyone knows, right? So the challenge is return to normalcy right now, and I think a lot of people are feeling the same way. And I guess the secondary challenge, so I'm not cheapening out of the question. I think the financial crunch on a lot of people, right, where the payment terms were usually 30 days, right now it's kind of like anywhere between 30 and 45. I think it's very, very important to work with everyone to make sure that it doesn't go above that. If there's a way to kind of solve it, that it does get paid out in 30 days, I think it would make so much, it would give so many companies relief, like if everything was a little bit faster. But right now it's a tough place for everyone financially. I think it's every single company that's going through this. I don't know if you're on the forums on Reddit or on like Inside
A
Transport or
little bit.
Carrier 401. Every broker, every freight forwarder, every carrier is getting yelled at for not paying within 30 days. But it's hard right now. It's a hard market.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure. Like you mentioned it earlier, everybody's dealing with the same thing. Anybody that's in, I guess, almost any business, right? They got to move goods somehow. So everybody's feeling that pain. But again, yeah, in a few months, hopefully we get some clarity on that because, like you said, a lot of people are struggling. So especially startups, people
Yeah.
in your position, it's making it hard for you guys versus like $1 million companies. They can afford to pay whatever it is that they need to get their products out. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are feeling that pain. Well, Arthur, has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing your vision behind Cargo Hive. But before we wrap up, let everybody know where they can connect to you and learn more about Cargo Hive.
Yeah, for sure. Our website is cargohive.net. As mentioned, we're also on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Arthur Sharapov. My co-founder's LinkedIn is Talal Ghazala. He's on LinkedIn too. My email is arthur@cargohive.net. As mentioned, as long as I'm not sleeping, I'll respond to you within 10 minutes. Even if I'm playing video games, even if I'm running around with my niece and nephew, you can find us. We're not hard to find. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, Dustin. It's been a real pleasure. Like I took a look at your YouTube videos too. I see that, you're getting some interesting people on. And I'm sure that you're growing, we're growing, and hopefully we'll both get to where we need to soon.
No, yeah, maybe we'll have you back on someday. No, thank you for your time also. Everyone go check them out. And for everyone listening, stay tuned. We got a lot more conversation with leaders building future logistics.